Only in America.
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 Welcome to Only in America. I'm Ali Narani. This week, a founder and CEO on why his company was only possible in the United States.
Leaving is tough. And so you're leaving either because you don't have a choice or you feel that way, or you're leaving because you want something better for yourself. And most people don't leave. The ones who leave are the ones who have the initiative, the gumption, the guts, and we get to get them. I mean, that's fantastic. And so in that sense, we're again so well positioned. We get the people who have the guts to leave and who have the initiative to come here. And that's wonderful.
From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Narani. Innovators and entrepreneurs from around the world have aspired to come to the United States for generations, and we have benefited immensely from it. In 2016, more than 40% of Fortune 500 companies had at least one founder who was either an immigrant or the child of an immigrant. These companies employed nearly 19 million people and generated $4.8 trillion in revenue. In other words, 1 out of every $7 generated by U.S. businesses. But it's not just the tech CEOs and startup founders who embody the relationship between immigration and American prosperity. A 2013 study found that 28% of Main Street businesses were owned by immigrants. These small and medium-sized local businesses are helping to revive neighborhoods and spur economic development in communities across the country. From the CEO of Microsoft to the shop owner down the street, immigrants have long championed the innovative, ambitious spirit that America prides itself on, whether through multi-million-dollar companies or local community engagement. But the Trump administration's expansive cuts to legal immigration, the U.S. is sending a message to the world. America is currently closed for business. In a recent piece for Forbes, Jeff Golvin pointed out that last year we saw the fewest number of immigrants arriving to the U.S. in over a decade. And business school applications from foreign students have dropped by 14% this year, while applications in Canada and Europe increased. Experts are pointing towards students' U.S. immigration concerns. As I wrote for the Boston Globe last week, when America turns its back, we close the door on that opportunity. We give license to other countries to turn their backs too, and we cede the moral high ground and we undermine our own economic competitiveness. In other words, the less immigrants see our nation as welcoming, the more that we stand to lose.
Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in education, democratic engagement, and strengthening international peace and security. And from Humanity United. When humanity is united, we can bring a powerful force for human dignity.
Ami Dar knows just how important and unique America's relationship is with immigration. Ami is the CEO and founder of Idealist.org, one of the most popular nonprofit resources on the web. Idealist helps people build or begin a career in the nonprofit world by posting hundreds of thousands of jobs each year. In fact, the first jobs that I applied for in the nonprofit sector, I found on Idealist.org. Born in Israel, raised in Peru and Mexico, Ami has always had a passion for social justice and an ambition to connect people who want to do good together. As an immigrant and an entrepreneur, Ami understands the multifaceted value of U.S. immigration and what's at stake if we continue to restrict it. At his office in New York City, Ami and I spoke about his journey to success, the uniqueness of American opportunity, and why he founded Idealist.
I was born in Israel, and then I grew up in Peru and Mexico because my dad worked there. Went back to Israel for high school, had to go to the army, and then went traveling for a bit on my own. I didn't like school as a kid, so college was not going to happen. And I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. This was the 80s. I was traveling South America for a couple of years. I was meeting lots of people who wanted to do something about what they were seeing around them, environment, poverty, etc. And I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And so one day when I was 24, I think, I thought, well, there should be a way of connecting all these people that want to do good with each other and with good things to do. Now, how? I had no idea. The web hadn't been invented yet, which today I think is a very difficult thing to imagine retrospectively for younger people, especially. Like a webless world, a world where your mother can't find you is hard. No cell phones, no nothing. There were fax machines and computers. But I thought there has to be a way. So I didn't know anyone, didn't know anything, I didn't have any money. Went back to Israel, worked as a waiter, as a translator for a while. Then a friend started a computer company, so I got a little bit into software. And then a few years later, I kept obsessing about this. The web was invented. And the day I saw the web for the first time in 93, 94, I was like, oh my God, this thing has been invented just for me. And with this, I can actually do something. And that led to Idealist a year or two later. And then that's it. That's sort of the only real job I've ever had.
Growing up, before you decided you were going to start Idealist, what did you see yourself as?
Well, depends. So I was a precocious kid. When I was like 8 years old, I was like caring about the world and reading the paper and stuff. So when I was 10, I was in Mexico and I wanted to start a revolution. I was going to go into the hills and basically topple the government. And then this interesting thing happens when you're
That's
10.
A standard dream for most 10-year-olds.
Exactly. and then this cool thing happens when you're 10 or 11, well, not very cool, and like you want to go and start a revolution. People don't take you seriously. When you're 10, you're sort of stunned by the fact that they don't take you seriously. Like, come on, let's go. So anyways, I wanted to be a revolutionary when I was 10. Then I think I wanted to be a professional diver when I was in my teens. And then I wanted to be a writer. And then I realized I'm sort of writing things because I'm annoyed by certain things in the world. So instead of writing about them, what can I do about them? And that led to this idea of basically joining up with other people and facilitating action in some way.
Did you ever see yourself as an organizer?
As an organizer, I guess more of a community builder, organizer also, I guess. Mm-hmm. One of the funny things, my wife makes fun of me, the staff here makes fun of me. I'm not a very gregarious, I'm very happy on my own reading a book or walking on the beach by myself. I'm not sort of, the last word I would use for me is schmoozer. Like I don't do that. And here I am trying to bring people together. So organizer, community builder, potentialities optimizer. I don't know. There's a lot to be done, and we have to do it. So
tell me about the early days of Idealist.
So the early days. So I came to the States in '92. I moved here because I'd come with my friend that was working on software. We'd come for a trade show in Las Vegas, of all places. And on the way back, we stopped in New York for a week in the fall. And I fell in love with New York. And I think had I come in August, I would have never moved here. But came in the fall and sort of felt this seems like a place that's open to new and big ideas. I felt that way about the U.S. in general, New York specifically. I still think it's true. And said, I want to try this place. So I came here in '92, didn't know anyone, etc. Wasn't legal, just came. And then did some software stuff. And then started Idealist with just a couple $1,000 of savings. And then for a long time, for 5 years almost, we had a staff of 2 plus me. I was working at a different company and sort of volunteering at the same time. And gradually this thing sort of picked up. It was a place for organizations to post themselves and find people, volunteers, interns, staff. And it took about 5 years to get the first grant and to really get going. So, I don't know, patience and stubbornness, and took a while.
I mean, I remember when I was first thinking about entering the nonprofit sector, this was probably, 97-ish, 98. I remember going to idealist.org, right, and looking for jobs.
We've been there forever,
Yeah.
When we started in 95, 94, 95, the first thing we did was build a site where we gathered every nonprofit website we could find on the web. And at the time, we found 2,500 in the world that had a website. And we didn't want to launch before finding a website in every one of the 50 states. And when you do something in the U.S., we try to find something in all 50 states. Mississippi is tough because it's poor. It'll drive you crazy. North Dakota is tough because there's no one there. I think it's a myth. I've never been, but I believe
there's like 10 people there. I've seen 9 of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we found finally one nonprofit in each state, and then we launched with that. And then build a database, etc. But we've been there for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So, have you ever met the people that have gotten jobs through Idealist?
Oh yeah, we meet them all the time. They walk up to me whenever there's an event or anything. We serve about 70,000 people every day, and so I think we post about 100,000 jobs a year. So probably I think I've posted more than 1 million jobs, and so I think there's a ton of people out there. I mean, what I like is people who now, all these years later, people who walk up to me and say, I'm 40 something. And every job I have found has been through you guys, with internships all the way through every job. Every step in my career has been there. So that's nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As you've kind of watched this population or this workforce grow, Have you gotten a sense of kind of how it's changed? I mean, whether it's demographically or their beliefs or what they're looking for?
I'm not sure it's changed that much. I mean, to be totally honest, I think it's a relatively slow-moving sector. I think it's a sector the sector as a whole, I think people change. The sector as a whole hasn't changed very much. I don't know, if you see it differently in DC, one thing that cracks me up, whenever I go to DC, I think nonprofit people in DC are going to be the last group of people in this country to wear ties. Like it's like the tie is gone, except when you go to DC and then you
terrible,
see sort of AIDS in Capitol Hill and nonprofit people wearing ties. Like people just take it off. Like you. So
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I brought one in my pocket just in case, right?
So it's a pretty traditional. I think it's a pretty. So I think it's essentially the same kind of people that want to do good stuff. Mm-hmm. They keep coming, which is great. You get a few new organizations once in a while. I was looking at this thing that someone posted about how if you go to the S&P 500, basically how companies change constantly, right? Like basically some of the biggest companies today didn't exist 30 years ago, Google, Facebook, etc. And yet, if you look at the top 50 nonprofits, 48 of them were 50 years ago or something. Like it doesn't really change very much. Right. I think Teach for America is like the only new one that is big. And it is 30 years old. Yeah. Right. So. Yeah, probably for a different podcast, but I've got a lot of opinions on how the sector needs to change as the world is changing around it. Yeah. That's a long conversation. Right. But yes. So now you start kind of thinking about this model in a global sphere too. Tell me a little bit about that. Well, yeah. Now Idealist is known today as as a big nonprofit job site. We're a nonprofit ourselves, volunteering site. But this original idea that I had of how do we help ourselves, all of us, move to action. I think there's this big gap of the world between the good intentions that all of us have and then the action that we actually take. We all would like to very often do something about something we see in the news or in the street. And so what are all the ways in which we can help people move from intention to action? So last year we've been experimenting. We set up this group on Facebook called Idealists of the World. It's a closed group, but anyone can join it. There's 40,000 something people there. And we're experimenting with this idea of something that we're calling Idealist Days, sort of monthly days of action and service. We grab basically the date of the month. So these days happen on 7/7, 8/8, 9/9, 10/10, etc. So instead of saying the first Tuesday or something, the date of the month that is the date of the month of that month, right? So the next one is tomorrow, 10/10, 11/11. It's very easy to remember. It works all over the world. So these are days in which anyone anywhere can take any action for something or someone. The idea being that human beings are good. It's good to have a milestone, a date, something to aim for. Something to invite people to say, hey, why don't you want to do something? We'll do it on this date. And it seems to work. People who wouldn't do something are doing it on that day because it's Idealist Day. So at the end of this month, we're going to set up a new homepage for idealist.org that will have that front and center. So the job piece will be there, but also this idea of monthly days of action, local groups. So much more into organizing, if you like. Right. Yeah, it's time to sort of go back to that initial vision and go for it. What would you like for that to result in? So the broad vision here for us, deliberately a very broad vision, is a world where all people can lead free and dignified lives. That's the basic idea. And I think that can be a pretty big tent to draw lots of people, the kind of thing you were mentioning earlier. I'm not a big fan of the current nomenclature of conservative, liberal, progressive, right, left. Doesn't really do it for me anymore. Most people don't know, right, left comes from like the shape of the parliament, of the convention during the French Revolution, where people were sitting. I think that if you go for something like who wants more freedom and more dignity for more people, you will find people who are more pro-government. You will find people who are more pro-market. I don't really care as long as they want that for more human beings. And so to invite those people and say, basically, all of us are idealists. We're all idealistic. We all want these things. And at least once a month, let's turn that into action. Then hopefully later every day, but at least once a month. And I think what that will hopefully allow a mayor to talk to a pastor, to talk to a sheriff, to talk to a local nonprofit and say, on this day, why don't all of us do X? It just opens a conversation that's interesting instead of just saying at any given point. People, I think, need excuses for meetings, for events. So events are, in that sense, events are almost magical. They provide a story, a hook. Are you guys also going to X? So that's what we like to do. So and have that sort of be a mass thing. I think all over the world on a certain day, people doing much more for each other and for anything they want. So you're returning to your 10-year-old roots. Yes, minus the guerrilla part of it. Minus the guerrilla part of it. Yes, all nonviolent. Given your story, your journey as an immigrant,
once or twice over
Yep.
to the U.S. What's your take on the way that the U.S. is grappling with the immigration debate these days?
Well, let me say a couple of things actually about sort of that. One thing is I think that many Americans who are not immigrants are not aware of how unique the U.S. is in that way. And I think that they don't take enough credit, actually, for how amazing the U.S. is to people like me or you or your parents or people who come here. I often think, I have this thing in my head, I think about Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think about how his story is an amazing American story that would be impossible anywhere else. There's no way in the world that an American bodybuilder ends up as the governor of an Austrian province. Like, that is not going to happen. And here comes Arnold as a bodybuilder, marries into American royalty, becomes an actor, becomes the governor of California with this crazy accent. And people don't care. It's the most amazing thing. And I think Americans don't know, Microsoft and Google, so the pride of the corporate world in this country, are now run by two men from India, not even sort of, people who were born here. No. These people came from India after their education there, and American companies are deciding they are better to run our company than all of our local people. This is an amazing American story. This is, I'm getting chills. I mean, this is an American thing. And I think Americans don't take enough credit for that. Mm-hmm. And so in my sort of small way, I mean, what I've experienced is I've come here, I've done what I've done. I'm aware of one thing. I'm aware that I'm a white male. I get that. And having said that, I've been part of many sort of, gatherings and forums in the US. No one once in 27 years has told me, who do you think you are having an opinion here? You're not even from here. Go away. Which would be normal in pretty much anywhere else. And so I don't know. I think on the one hand, I'm just like extraordinarily grateful for the ability. An American male, I'm in New York. I'm a white male, I'm in New York. I get that. Maybe it's different in different places. Maybe it's different if you look different. I don't know. I have no way of knowing that. But the openness is incredible. And so I don't know. I hope that we can find a way of continuing that. I'm hoping that there's understanding of how much value immigrants bring here. This cliche of we're a nation of immigrants. Yes, it doesn't apply in the same way to Native Americans or to African Americans, but essentially it's a nation of immigrants, and I hope we can continue with that. I mean, there's something wonderful about the new ideas. There has to be a way of continuing this kind of dynamism that has been amazing.
That's interesting. I've never heard that perspective, right? And then the
feeling
of the pride that America should feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? How do we help the country understand what to be proud of in that case?
Yeah, I don't know. I think continuing to emphasize how incredibly unique it is. There's this amazing way in which Americans take it for granted. It's hard to explain without being somewhere else. That Americans take it for granted that Anna Wintour runs Vogue, or it's interesting that on the left and the right, everyone has their bogeyman, everyone has their people they hate. But in the U.S. now, you have Soros and you have Murdoch, right on both sides. An Australian and a Hungarian. And we take it for granted that they're here. There are all these foreigners serving in the Congress. When it was this crazy moment when Schwarzenegger was running a few years ago, I don't know if you remember, he was running against Arianna Huffington. Mm-hmm. And so here was this woman with this strong Greek accent, with this guy with a strong German accent, and they're running to be the governor of the biggest state in this country. And no one even mentions that. That was not even part of the process. And so, I don't know, there's something incredibly beautiful about it. And I think what Americans don't know, because they take it so deeply for granted, is that all of this is impossible anywhere else. There's no way that in England an American would be allowed to be the editor of something like The New Yorker, which Tina Brown edited, or something like Vogue, or the Wall Street Journal is being edited by a Brit. There are all these British editors in the US. There are no American editors in London. It's a Yank. We're not going to give our most valuable thing to a Yank. Not going to happen. Here it's normal. You've been to Silicon Valley. I mean, the place is basically the world. It's amazing. And we all gain from that. So let's please keep doing it.
And it's amazing, even in like South Carolina, you had Nikki Haley,
Yeah.
a child of immigrants, be the ambassador to the UN, be a governor,
If you,
a leader up and coming in the Republican Party.
You bring up politics. There was a few years ago. There was this moment when the two most powerful people, in a sense, in the country were President Obama and Rahm Emanuel,
Yeah.
right? And so I was home one day and I was watching something on television. I'm like, the son of a Kenyan immigrant and the son of an Israeli immigrant are running this country.
Yeah.
And again, it's harder to explain to Americans how astonishing that is. There's no way in the world, in Mexico where I grew up, to be president of Mexico, your parents, both of them need to have been born in Mexico, okay? Look back at our history and think how many people it would eliminate if both parents have to be born in the U.S. for you to be, the president or other things. And so this idea of the son of an immigrant being president of Germany, just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And here it's just normal. I mean, the Obama story is astonishing. Again, put politics aside, you can look at Obama together with Nikki Haley, or together with this guy, what was the name of I'm very bad with
Bobby
names.
Jindal.
Bobby Jindal.
Yeah.
I mean, Cruz, Rubio. I mean, these are, again, regardless of party, right? These are amazing stories. And so I think Americans don't know that that's not the normal story elsewhere, right? And then, in fact, in most countries, it'd be almost ridiculous. I mean, I keep mentioning places like Germany or Japan or whatever. If you look at India, if you look at Pakistan, I mean, the idea of, it's just a very... The thing, for example, about Sonia Gandhi, the fact that she's Italian, is this like, there's a weirdness about it in India. I mean, this is totally not normal,
Right.
Whereas here, it's like, whatever, who cares? President Trump's wife is Slovenian. Like, and that's the least of the conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that she's an immigrant.
Yeah. We just talked about all these very high profile, important, powerful people.
Yeah, just because they're well known.
Right, because they're well known. And I would imagine if we were having this conversation in front of a big audience, they would say, okay, I get that. But then how do we instill that same amount of pride in the immigrant who's coming today from Central America, right? Or from Asia. And there's just this disconnect between people we think who are worthy to be American and the people that we think who are not worthy.
Oh, completely. I mean, I was mentioning these names just because they're salient.
Course,
I think actually, and you do get into sort of a bit of, it's that saliency, I think, that, in other words, that kind of sort of, when I say, someone like Schwarzenegger wouldn't be allowed to be a governor in Austria, unfortunately, all over the world, immigrants are allowed to be, street cleaners. I mean, that's sort of obvious for people, right? But I think the thing is that so many people in this country rose from that. I mean, people who basically, in one generation, come here, and then their kids are at MIT one generation later. And, Steve Jobs is the son of a Syrian immigrant. I mean, this is how stuff happens. So you have people who sort of get to be known. The founder of Google, well, he's the son of Russian refugees. I mean, this is how it works here. And so you don't know when you meet someone. I love having these conversations sometimes in New York with cab drivers. Cab drivers are basically very often it's one of the lowliest. It's a horrible job. You're driving a cab for 12 hours a day, sometimes making $100 in the rain. It's a horrible job. And so I talk to them, and you have doctors, you have teachers, these are amazing people who are just waiting for an opening. And when they find it, they'll take it. So I think it's pride about this amazing thing that we all of us have built here. And that we've built it because people kept coming and kept wanting to build it. So I think, it's part of the same story. Yeah. Americans love going out and eating Thai, eating Chinese, eating Italian. Well, how does that happen? That happens when you have immigration. Again, if you travel to certain places in the world, you can't eat Italian, you can't eat Thai. There is nothing. So welcome immigrants. I
want to get your reaction to one thing then. Doris Meisner, who ran Immigration and Naturalization Services for President Clinton, she told me once that, to paraphrase, Americans cherish immigration in hindsight, but not so much in the present day. What do you think?
I think that makes sense. I think, well, first of all over the world, I think here too, people cherish, in hindsight, immigrants like themselves. So it starts from that. It's like, if everyone here was like me, then it'd be fine. So I think all groups tend to look askance at the following group that comes in. So there's that, absolutely. And I think that you also get into this abstraction, right? Like people like the immigrant they know, the person next door, oh, that's my neighbor. That's not immigration. That's my neighbor. It's like the whole thing that people like their congressman, but they hate Congress, right? So people hate teachers, but they like their teacher. So people like the immigrant next door. Immigration as a concept can sound sort of just, I think it's an abstraction. I think also if you don't put, what do you mean by immigration, right? How many, from where will they settle down, all of that. And then, and I think also immigration means change. But I think, again, if people just saw that getting up and leaving is hard. And most people don't want to. I mean, most people actually all over the world would rather be happy where they are than leave. Leaving is tough. And so you're leaving either because you don't have a choice or you feel that way, or you're leaving because you want something better for yourself. And most people don't leave. The ones who leave are the ones who have the initiative, the gumption, the guts, and we get to get them. I mean, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, we're, again, so well positioned. We get the people who have the guts to leave and who have the initiative to come here. And that's wonderful. Again, I feel often like I feel bad for a country whose people leave in such numbers. The Congo needs doctors. They shouldn't all leave. But if you're the recipient, I mean, that's great.
So the name of the podcast is Only in America. So my last question is for you to finish the sentence. Only in America, ...
Well, I don't want to repeat myself. Only in America, Schwarzenegger possible. I think, only in America is this conversation possible. Where did you or your parents or your grandparents come from? Pakistan. So this is extra interesting. So only in America is someone who is a descendant of Pakistanis and Israeli having a conversation about this. I imagine that you or your ancestors were Muslim. Mm-hmm. I'm Jewish. Mm-hmm. Here we are in New York, speaking in English about America. And that is only possible in America, this conversation.
Right.
If someone saw our photos right now, what you and I look like, I mean, only this is only possible here. This is not happening anywhere else. And it's an amazing thing, this crown jewel that we should, polish and keep and cherish.
It's a little dusty right now, but we'll try to polish it up.
We'll keep at it. We'll keep at it.
Ami Dar is the founder of Idealist.org. You can find more information about him at our website, immigrationforum.org/podcast. And while you're there, subscribe to Only in America to stay up to date when new episodes come out. Thank you so much for listening to Only in America. Our work at the National Immigration Forum through our podcast is all about redefining the immigration conversation. We're always trying to find different people and different perspectives to speak with. 2 seasons and more than 100 episodes in, your support is helping reshape our nation's immigration story. As we approach the end of the year, please consider supporting the forum at immigrationforum.org. Only in America is produced and edited by Emily Chow, Joanna Taylor, and Megan Wetmore. I'm Ali Narani. I will talk to you next week.